Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. I have this easel set up and I'm going to be using it in a few minutes. But first I want to read an email I got from one of my subscribers. In fact, it was a comment on my last video from Brad Myers. And he suggested that the many waters which the Whore of Babylon sits on are symbolic and they are not real. And I've always said, no, they are real waters. And the Whore of Babylon represents primarily the United States, and those waters are the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Great Lakes. So let me read his letter and see if I can't respond to it. And under his name, Brad Myers, he's got United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. I'm not sure if that means he represents them or is he using them as a source, but anyway, he mentions them. And he quotes from Revelation 17, verse 15 from the NABRE Bible, which is a 2011 Catholic Bible, and I don't care much for the translation, but it's fairly accurate as far as Revelation goes. Then he said to me, "The waters that you saw where the harlot lives represent large numbers of peoples, nations, and tongues." Well, so far, so good. And he comments, "The angel clearly explains to us and to the Apostle John that the waters represent large numbers of people, nations, and tongues, not waters associated with large bodies of water." Well, where does it say that, Brad? You added that. Don't add to Scripture. He does not specifically say that it is not large bodies of water. And I'm going to prove in a minute through my little chart I'm going to draw for you that, in fact, the large bodies of water, the many waters, does indeed refer to real bodies of water. And he continues here. The great harlot in Revelation 17 and 18 must refer to the future. Well, that's true. Because no city in history has ever been destroyed like what is described in Revelation 17 and 18. Now, the only problem here is that the Whore of Babylon is a country, not a city. In fact, it's more than one country. And that's not unusual for John to interchange cities and countries. For example, he calls Jerusalem and Sodom and Egypt. So he mixes up or interchanges cities and countries. And in fact, Ronald Reagan called the United States a shining city on a hill. And Brad continues. Revelation 17:9, again, this is from the NABRE edition. "Here is a clue for one who has wisdom. The 7 heads represent 7 hills." No argument there. "Upon which the woman sits. They also represent 7 kings." And yes, that is very important symbolism, and I'm going to use that in just a minute. Now here is the note on this verse from the USCCB. Here is a clue, literally. Here is the mind that has wisdom, 7 hills of Rome. And I agree 100%. The 7 hills do indicate Rome. But the 7 hills belong to the Scarlet Beast. Don't forget, the Scarlet Beast has 7 heads. And those 7 heads symbolize 7 hills and 7 kings. Not the Whore of Babylon. The Whore of Babylon is located geographically on many waters. And then Brad gets into the prophecy of St. Malachi, which is not scriptural, but it is pertinent in this case. And it's kind of windy. I don't know if that's going to affect the microphone or not. In fact, it's been lightning and thundering all day, so if I suddenly bail out of here, don't be surprised. "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the 7-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people." The end. Well, I agree with that. Rome will be destroyed. But just because it's destroyed doesn't mean it refers to the Whore of Babylon, which is also destroyed. Rome will be destroyed in the end of the tribulation period. The Whore of Babylon is destroyed near the beginning of the tribulation. And Brad also refers to Our Lady of La Salette. Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. I agree 100%. But nowhere in the book of Revelation does John say that the whore Babylon becomes the seat of the Antichrist. In fact, just the opposite. He says the scarlet beast becomes the seat of the Antichrist. And that verifies what I am saying, that the scarlet beast is headquartered in Rome. And if you don't believe me, read Revelation 17, verse number 17. Okay, so now I want to use my clipboard here and demonstrate mathematically, so to speak. And Robert Breaker uses this, and he got 5 million views on this video where he promised to tell you what was going to happen September 23rd. He never did tell you what happened, but there's no reason why I can't get 5 million views, because I'm going to use a clipboard too. And Glenn Beck likes to use clipboard. And this goes back to, for you old timers, you may remember Bishop Fulton J. Sheen. And he was very popular. So let me start the way Bishop Sheen always started, and he would put on top JMJ. And I'm sure you old timers know what that means. You may know anyway. It means Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So in a lot of end times Bible prophecy, you have to figure out the problem, and it's almost like an algebra problem. So let me give you an example. X over 10 equals 1 over 2. Now there's a very simple algebra problem, and you solve that for x equals 5. And John did the same thing with the false prophet. He lets us know that the false prophet is a cardinal in the Roman Catholic Church by associating him with the color red, even though he never says that. But if you figure out that the Satan, the red dragon, is red, the scarlet beast is red, and either the false prophet or the Antichrist must be associated with the color red, and if you do the calculation, it's the false prophet. Very similar to this algebra problem. So let's see how it works as far as determining if the many waters is real or symbolic. So let's put on the left side of the equation many waters. I don't know if you can hear me say that because I'm speaking away from the microphone. Many waters. And the location for, this is the location for the whore Babylon. The location for the scarlet beast is on 7 hills. And that's right out of the book of Revelation. The question is, are the many waters real? The many waters equals peoples, nations, and tongues. And the 7 hills also symbolize 7 kings. I told you the lightning and thunder was coming. I don't know if you could hear that or not. And this is exactly what the book of Revelation says. And we know the peoples are real, and they're the same as the 7 kings. In other words, they are both, there's a relationship there. So, to the 2 locations, the location of the whore Babylon and the scarlet beast. The peoples are individuals. The kings are individuals. Over here we have 7 hills. They are real hills. Brad and everyone else will acknowledge that. So if these are the same, these would be the same. And therefore the 7 hills are real 7 hills. The many waters are real many waters. Now John doesn't say they're real, as Brad noted, but if you do the algebraic equation, then you realize if you solve for x, the many waters must indeed be real. And that's my lesson for today, so to speak, and I expect 5 million views on this video. And Brad had several other questions. I don't have time on this program, maybe on the next program. In the meantime, as always, if you want to know more about my ministry here on YouTube, visit my thirdeaglemedia.com website.